Hello, my name is Tandy Banks. Welcome to this Shape Your World session on SOLIDWORKS MBD and Inspection. Shape Your World is all about the product development process. And you can see from this slide there's four main areas that we like to focus on: conceptualize, design, validate and document, and manufacturing. In this session, we're going to cover that manufacture area. We're going to focus in on a couple of really great products in SOLIDWORKS MBD and SOLIDWORKS Inspection. Before we do that, let's take a look at our project this year. Every year we try to focus around a type of project, and this year it was our RC car. We wanted to focus on a lot of things. We've been doing a lot with 3D scanning, reverse engineering. We also wanted to look at analysis-driven design, also called topology optimization. And then we wanted to tie in some 3D printing tips and tricks because, hey, it's what we do. So we used a multi-platform design process, and we even threw in a little bit of industrial design. So we started off with the Traxxas Slash, and we finished up with our own GoEngineer design. It was a unibody design that was using the topology optimization. It was able to give us a very strong structural shape while minimizing our material and our manufacturing process. So if we take a look at the SOLIDWORKS product portfolio, you can see the purple boxes over in the lower right-hand side. That's where we're going to be focusing some time today. That's part of our technical communications. SOLIDWORKS MBD. This tool, model-based definition, allows us to define, organize, and publish 3D PMI. That's a lot of acronyms. Product manufacturing information. So what that does is it actually allows us to streamline our production while cutting design cycle times. We're reducing errors, and for some of our customers, it's very important we have the ability to comply with standards. So as I've been doing design for over the last close to 20 years, one of the things that I've found is that we spend a lot of time creating drawings of models that already have all the information that we need. They already contain all the PMI. And I found doing time studies as well as SOLIDWORKS' studies show that we spend just about a half, 50% of our design time is spent making drawings of those models that already contain the information that we need. When we think about design, most of us have a picture in mind that's something of a 3D shape, because we live in a 3D world. Everything around us is physically 3D. And so whenever we have to take those to a 2D traditional drawing, what we're doing is we're adding a translation process in there. And there's a lot of waste in that. So if we're going from a 3D idea to a 2D design and back to a 3D part. And so all that just adds cost. It's inefficient and it's error prone. So SOLIDWORKS MBD gives us the ability to use existing dimensions, all the annotations, everything that we've got in that model to capture as 3D PMI. We're able to create 3D views, and 3D views are much more powerful than just, say, a named view, because not only are we grabbing the camera angle, but we're also grabbing the annotation view, display states, configurations, section status, as well as that camera orientation. And then we have the ability to save these off as dynamic 3D PDF documents or e-drawings. 3D PDFs are template driven, so that way we can convey that design intent just the way that your company needs. And we're also able to attach or embed that 3D model directly into the PDF. So we've got three different delivery methods. We've got the SOLIDWORKS model themselves within the SOLIDWORKS interface, 3D PDF using the free Adobe Acrobat Reader, and then we've also got our e-drawings. So let's take a look at SOLIDWORKS MBD. Let's take a look at a quick example of how we can capture our PMI. We're going to use the Dim Expert functionality found in the SOLIDWORKS MBD toolbar. From here, we're able to set up that we want a prismatic and a geometric tolerancing type. Now I can just select the primary, secondary, and tertiary faces, right mouse buttoning in between each one of those to make it very fast and easy. Right mouse button again to say OK, and SOLIDWORKS MBD and SOLIDWORKS Dim Expert goes through the process of creating our PMI. Green faces let us know that these are fully defined faces. Color coding can be turned off if we want to see our original part color. Now we can go through the process of capturing the 3D views. The 3D views area is down here in our lower area of our SOLIDWORKS interface. And we can see that we've got the Capture 3D button here, as well as up in our ribbon toolbar. So now I can choose to capture a 3D view. We'll give this one a name, and we'll just call it First. We'll capture all of the annotation views, And if we had different configurations or display states, we could choose those from the drop down. So the Capture 3D view gets our camera angle as well as our annotation views, display states, configurations. So now we can reorient our model. I'm using a Control 1 in order to be able to orient that in a front view. And I'll choose to capture a front view, and I will call this one front. I'll deselect the other annotation views that we don't want to use, and a green check mark will capture our front view. We can cycle between the different views just by double mouse button on each of those down here in that film strip area. I'll reorient to a right view, and let's capture for our right. We'll do the same for the top. So I'll just cycle back through those real quick. Now that we've got all of our views and PMI captured, we're ready to go ahead and create our PDF. Using the Publish the 3D PDF button, we can choose which of the templates that we want to use. SOLIDWORKS comes with several, and I'll show you how we can create our own in just a few moments. From there, we can choose which of the views that we want to publish, and the next button up here in our feature manager will allow us to be able to set things like what's the number, what's the material, and maybe even who completed the task. Another green check mark. We'll save that file off, and SOLIDWORKS MBD goes to creating our dynamic 3D PDF. Once that's been published, it brings it up and active into the window for us, allowing us to see the finished product. These are dynamic views, and so we're able to zoom, pan, and rotate. We can select on dimensions and be able to better understand where those dimensions are attached. We have a notes area where the user can apply notes, maybe things for the manufacturing process. These can be saved, and we can also include, using the comment function, any of our models that we want to attach. So from here we can simply find the appropriate model, maybe a step file, add any comments, description, and now that model will be embedded into our 3D PDF. Now let's take a look at a few tips and tricks related to SOLIDWORKS MBD. So here's our rear strut tower from our RC car. This is where the suspension attaches in. Wheels would be down in this area, and this is where it would attach to the car. We can utilize dimensions that are shown as part of the features. So if we turn on all of our feature dimensions, it can become quite busy, but we can create our own annotation views that utilize these, as well as our Dim Expert functionality. So I'm going to use that auto dimensioning scheme that I just showed you a while ago, and we'll choose our 3 datums. Right mouse button in between each of those. And then instead of using the all features, we're going to choose selected features this time. That way we can come down here and we can pick up our hole patterns and maybe just focus in or specialize on those holes. You'll notice how as we select each of those, as I selected each of those features, that it selected the hole patterns. Green check mark is going to produce those Dim Expert dimensions related to those. Well, now what I would like to do to keep this from being so busy is I want to create an annotation view specific for this. So I can expand my annotations toolbar in my feature tree. We can right mouse button on that and choose to insert an annotation view. It wants to know what our general orientation is, and I'm going to use that front orientation. Can use the orientate view so that way we can look directly on that. And then I can choose the next button to go through the process of choosing which dimensions are going to be added to this specific annotation view. So I might want to get in things that are specific to my holes. And again, kind of decluttering the drawing view as we look at it. Green check mark here will finish that up, and we could choose to hide any of the other views that we no longer want to see. Makes that a lot cleaner. Can select on that and choose to give this a name called holes. So that'd be one way we could set up additional annotation views prior to us creating and capturing our 3D views. And so that way we can use just those annotation views. So that's one way to make that helpful when we're doing MBD. Another way is for us to create our own templates. So the template editor is found here in the MBD toolbar. By selecting that, it is going to fire up a separate application, and we're able to start with one of the out-of-the-box templates or create our own from scratch. I far prefer to use one of the ones that are already created and just make modifications and save my own. So let's take a look at this template editor for just a moment. It's a pretty easy user interface. One of which is up here at the top, our toolbars, being able to new, open, save, pretty common things we're used to dealing with. We can set snaps, our views, the background image, setting up the page as far as what, if it's a landscape or portrait orientation, what size it is, if it's an A4 or if it's an A size in the ANSI standards. We could add images, bill of material tables specific for assemblies, lots of different text options, tables, and then we can set our viewports. You'll also notice in the very bottom left-hand corner, we have the ability to set up multiple pages. By default, these are set as a one page, but simply clicking the plus will add a second page where we can add additional information. I'm going to focus on a single sheet PDF for today. So from here, you can see that we've got one main view. This is required. We just simply need to place where we want it, its aspect ratio, and we're set and ready to go. We've got static text that we can place, as well as custom property information. You can see from the 4 tabs up here the different types that we have, from PDF, custom property, template text, and then general text fields. We can set the custom property value that we want to be specified for this specific property. You can see we can have multiples of those. So PDF placeholder is just that. It's PDF notes area that allows the end user, the consumer, to be able to key in information. I want to start by opening up our Shape Your World part template. You can see here that we've got this gray background with the logos. That was done by grabbing background selection and choosing the appropriate JPEG image. You can use SOLIDWORKS, or you could use something like Inkscape or Adobe Illustrator or Corel or something in order to create that layout. I used Inkscape, which is a shareware graphics program. So from there, just choosing the background places that in the area, and then grabbing the film strip down here below is where our individual captured views will go. You can change the location or the size of that, move notes around. And when you're happy with this, choosing the Save As box will allow you to be able to tell it where you want that to go. I have by default the SOLIDWORKS out of the box setting, and you can see all the different templates that we have to work from. Back over here in SOLIDWORKS, let's take a look at another useful tip. I've got my holes annotation view activated and oriented. And maybe if I want to show the front view, we see that we've got a lot of additional information that is there. Maybe I want to add one of these dimensions into my holes annotation view. We can select on dimensions, and we can hit the tilde, and it allows us to be able to assign which annotation view that a dimension is shown in. And so I can select that dimension, choose it for holes, and now whenever I hide front, you'll see that that new dimension stays active. So those are a couple of the tips and tricks while using SOLIDWORKS MBD to help you be able to capture, define, organize, and publish that 3D PMI very easily. Now let's take a look at SOLIDWORKS Inspection. So we're back at the SOLIDWORKS product portfolio. This time up is SOLIDWORKS Inspection. SOLIDWORKS Inspection is a tool that allows us to be able to easily capture characteristics. It's a big fancy word, but it just means our dimensions, our annotations, geometric tolerances, any of the other annotations that we may need in order to properly measure a part to see if it meets our quality standards. We're able to export first article inspection reports as well as other inspection reports. And we do this all while greatly reducing the amount of time. So as a design engineer, I would spend anywhere from 2 hours to 2 days just making the inspection documentation for my design. And you'll see in just a few moments, we're able to take SOLIDWORKS inspection and reduce that by over 98%. I almost get a full day back each time that I run this product. So let's take a look at SOLIDWORKS inspection. SOLIDWORKS inspection allows us to quickly capture features and characteristics to build into first article inspection reports or other in-process inspection documentation. We do that either through the SOLIDWORKS ribbon toolbar up in the Command Manager or through the left-hand side here using the SOLIDWORKS add-in in the feature tree area. We do that by starting off with a common template. And we go through the process of capturing any of our metadata that we want to have as part of our project. And so by selecting on the button, we can choose to pull in things like the part number, the name from the model, as well as the revision. And so we're able to link those values into our project property. We can choose whether we want to have additional document numbers. We set the characteristic numbering, and then whether we want to classify these by default as incidental, critical, major, minor. So leave those by default into the incidental. Choosing the next icon, we can go through and set our extraction criteria. These are the out-of-the-box settings which allow me to grab all the dimensions except for reference and basic. If I wanted to choose to add reference, I could select that, basic the same way. If we look down in the notes area, we're grabbing all the notes except for what's on the sheet format. If we needed to grab those, we can choose that option. We're going to explode any note blocks into individual notes, and then we're going to use an extraction criteria. These are regular expressions. If you do a search on the internet for regular expression, there are many editors, many of those are free, and they allow you to create a string of code to determine the specific note types or the text that would be displayed in those notes and be able to differentiate which notes you want to have included in your inspection report and those that you would rather not. The bulk of the code that's being shown here, which is the out-of-the-box standard from SOLIDWORKS, just allows me to grab notes that start with numbers and to exclude notes that may start with R, something like a radius dimension. Below there you can see we grab geometric tolerance frames, hole callouts, weld symbols, surface finish symbols, and so on. The last tab is the ability to set default or title block type tolerances. These are going to be applied to any dimension that does not already have a tolerance specified. So the majority of our dimensions here on the on this rear strut tower don't have any tolerances specified. And so what we can do is we can set up based off of the number of decimal places, whether we want those to be plus or minus, or +1 -2 as the default, or we can make adjustments to those and say that we want those to be plus or minus 5 thousandths. We can adjust the linear tolerances as well as the angular tolerances. By choosing on the green check mark, we're accepting these, and SOLIDWORKS inspection is going to go to work gathering the individual dimensions, notes, and any other type of annotations, and it brings those back into a bill of characteristics that we see here on the left-hand side. We can go through the process of selecting those individually, either from the feature tree or by selecting those graphically on the screen. Doing so, we're able to get to the details of each of those characteristics. We can make adjustments as needed, or we might just want to check out and see what the computed upper and lower limits are. Specify comments, maybe even set what type of operation creates this feature, or what type of inspection method that we want to use. All these drop lists are easily editable. You'll find those up here in the inspection toolbar. We can modify things like the inspection methods. And if you notice, we have an easy button here to allow us to import those using a CSV file to bring in our company specific information for inspection methods, for operations, and for our vendors. Once we're satisfied with the characteristics that we've gathered using the SOLIDWORKS add-in, we're able to export those out into a first article inspection report, something like an AS9102. You can see these 4 templates here were created by SOLIDWORKS, and they're available as part of the installation of SOLIDWORKS Inspection. So I'll choose that first AS9102, and let's go ahead and kick that out. And you'll see the first article inspection report has been created very quickly and easily. Let's take a look at a few additional tips and tricks. So one of the things that I've done here is that I let my inspection report automatically create my balloons. But if we come over here to the second icon, this is where we set up our balloon specifications. So by default, we're going to create a layer called balloons. It's going to create the balloons there. This template had it set up to be a 2-character balloon. We can change the size. I'm going to bring these down to a tight fit. I'm going to leave that at circular. We could have a key characteristic format change, but you'll notice down here in the lower area where we've got offsets. This is what determines where the balloon is in relationship to the feature, dimension, annotation, whatever it's attached to. And you can see these have got a negative X value, which means it's to the left, and a positive Y value, which means that it's up. I'm going to key these in at 0.15. And so that way it's going to make that a little closer on the left-hand side for us. Just a couple more of these, and you can see that you can dial these in specific to the type of annotation that we're creating. All right, we also could have those attached to the characteristics, and we can have them rotate in case we've got something that's a vertical annotation. Green check mark there, you'll get a little flash and dash. You'll see that those balloons are going to update, and they're going to pull in just ever so slightly a little closer to the left. Now what I want to do, since I've got those adjusted, is I want to create our own template. This is very helpful for companies as they're first starting out with SOLIDWORKS Inspection. The second icon up here in our upper left toolbar is going to allow us to create that inspection template. This is where we can give it a name. I'll overwrite my Shape Your World 2016. And now that template will be able to be utilized on future projects. Just to show you how that would work, we'll go ahead and create a new inspection project. Whenever I click on this icon, I'm posed with the question, do I want to create a new inspection project from scratch? And in this instance, I do. So we'll go ahead and yes. From here, I can scroll down, and instead of using my default template, I want to use that newly created Shape Your World 2016. So you'll notice that it automatically picks up those properties. We've got our criteria, and then we've got our Tyler block tolerances that I mentioned earlier. Green check mark is going to go through the process of creating those balloons using the new tight round balloon and have those set at the closer spacing. These balloons are an annotation just like anything else that we've got in SOLIDWORKS. So we come into our layer control, and we can do things like change the color of the balloons. We also could determine that we want something to be in a different layer. So by selecting the annotation, you can see the property manager is highlighted, and we can scroll down and maybe place this on a critical features layer. That's where we can get a differentiation between our normal balloons and our critical balloons. Those green balloons are a little hard to see, so let's go ahead and make a change and adjust that to say like a blue color. There we go, that's a little bit easier to see. We've modified the inbound template. Let's take a look at the outbound template. If we go up and we choose to launch the template editor, again, this is for our outbound template, things like the AS9102 that we used a while ago. I'm going to select it, and we're going to modify the Excel template. Opens our template up into Excel, and we're able to do things like change the formatting of cells, borders, fonts, column widths, row heights. We can adjust all of the normal Excel functionality to be able to get our form looking the way that we want. This template editor box that pops up over here on the upper right hand side, this allows us to be able to add information that will be dynamic based on our inspection project. So if we were wanting to create a new column and we were wanting to specify something like the upper limit, even though we've already got that in our template, we can use things like the characteristic token. If you use the drop down here, we can see all the information that was on our left-hand side when we're working with characteristics are now in this drop list, and we can come down and we can pick up the upper limit. By choosing the specific token that we want and click on the Insert button, it now puts the syntax into our template that inspection will use when using this template in creating our first article inspection report. So no need to know the code in order to do that. This token will allow us to be able to input that. If we look at the document tokens, you can see things like who created it, the dates, document numbers revision, part number revision, vendor, job number, lot size. Those are those things that we specified in the project properties. When we're all finished, we can come over and hit the Finished button, and we can proceed with where we want to save these. In the program data, SOLIDWORKS Inspection, it'd be based on the year and the add-in for the add-in templates. And we can see from there that we also have the ability to set templates for the standalone. So you'll have one for each year of usage for the add-in as well as for the standalone. You'll want to set those templates up for each area so that way you've got all of your bases covered for your inspection implementation. Those were just a few of the tips and tricks in SOLIDWORKS Inspection that allows us really to reduce a lot of the time and effort needed in order to create great inspection documentation. Thank you for watching this section on SOLIDWORKS MBD and SOLIDWORKS Inspection as part of the Shape Your World series.